All right. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to Real Talk with Karen Weaver. I am excited about my very special guest, Jeri Darby, who's here with us. And first, you know what? Let me say thank you for coming on. But I have to tell you, I'm very confused because I was looking at your bio and I said, "Oh, I saw so many things that I could talk with you about." And I said, "I know why we're here today." And but I said, "I learned some other things about you that I didn't know." So for those that don't know you, I want people to know that you're a writer, you're an author, you're a coach. And one of the things that I read in your bio that you said was that you thought that writing is the most important assignment in the world. That
That's
that that
correct.
it's the most important assignment. And I read that and I said, "Wow." And so you created I Am a Writer Now.
Yeah,
And it's for coaching. It's coaching and authoring services to activate, inspire, and release the author trapped inside others. I said, "Ooh, that might be talking to me." I'm gonna tell you about that. But you've written 14 books.
yes.
14. That's a lot. I can't get to one. And you've written 14. And I see why. I was told, they said, someone told me, "You need to talk to her. You need to interview her because you and other people need to hear about you and learn about you." And so when I was reading it, I said 14 books with some titles available in Audible, Kindle, and in Spanish.
Yes.
Now I said, "Wow, that's a lot." But I also read that you're a retired nurse
Yeah.
and served over 20 years in mental health, the mental
Mm.
health field. And I said, "Oh, I could talk to her about so many things." And that's why I said, "I'm just confused. I'm gonna stay focused today." But I'm a mental health provider as well. I'm a psychologist by that's what I
Oh,
did all of my professional life until I was until I was mayor. I was over behavioral services at Mott Children's Health Center. I was there for 18 years. And so when I saw that, I said, "Oh, there are so many things." But it explained, the range of books that you have because I saw things in the field of mental health. I saw things in becoming a writer and being an author and coaching people so they can get out of that stuck mode or mode of uncertainty on how do you start putting your thoughts down to become an author, to become a writer. I saw something around the physical health field and pregnant women. And so I said, that's why she can talk to all of these things. As I looked at your bio, it's very impressive. It's very, very
thank
impressive.
you.
And so I
Thank
just
you.
wanted to say that. Yeah, yeah. And it was funny because Eric Culpepper was talking about you. And I said, "Wow, she sounds like somebody I need to have a talk with." And it was so funny because I started looking at these books. I said, "I need you to talk to us because you said I am a writer now.
I
I
am a
am a
writer
writer now."
now.
And I said,
Yes.
"How do you do that?" Because and what led you to do that? I mean, what inspired you to go into, because that's a different area than what you have been doing as far as your professional career and your training. And you
Okay.
switched. I don't know if you switched. This is me talking. Don't let me just say these things. But what inspired you to go into this area?
Well, writing has always been a part of my life, and I do believe
Hmm.
I'm also a minister, so I do believe that
You're
before
a
God
yes.
put us in our mother's womb, He has already put inside of us our purpose and the things we are to fulfill. So I grew up in a very dysfunctional home. I had a very abusive childhood, and I tried to be invisible, but it didn't help me to escape the abuse. And so I was very
Hmm.
shy, and the enemy has stolen my voice. So writing was a way for me to express myself. So I have always done that over the years through journaling because I couldn't speak to a group of one person, one on one. It was hard for me to express
Hmm.
myself. But I found that when I wrote, I could do it. And when I got older and started reading books and magazines, in the back of my mind, it was like, I could do that. I could do that. So I said, I'm going to write a book. Now, it took me 20 years to write my book. And the reason for that is because I don't know, it was confidence and didn't know where to start and all those excuses. And so I decided to start with magazine writing so that I could break in and understand what it took to be a writer.
See, and that's amazing to me because and it's interesting that you said the enemy tried to take your voice. And but you didn't let the enemy do that. Even you might not have been verbalizing it, but you were putting it on paper. You were going to make sure that what your voice had to say was going to be somewhere. And that's so funny because I remember I always said when people said you're running and you're coming in under an emergency manager, what are you going to be able to do? And one of the things I said was I'm going to use my voice, and so I like that because voice is powerful. Whether you're
Very,
saying it, whether you're reading it, it's powerful.
it's very powerful. And I believe, like you said, you have a mental health background. So I'm sure you're acquainted with how children are abused so early in age. And even in the womb, they can have
Hmm.
trauma. And it's because of the voice. The enemy comes for our voice. And anything to shut us up and to shut us down, the earlier the better. But he underestimates the grace of God to bring us through.
That's right. That's right. And you having said that, you have some devotional books that you've put together. I mean, you have such a wide range of where your voice took you in your writing. And so when I heard about that, I was with somebody, and I've had so many people approach me and say, "Oh, you should write a book." And I look at them like, "You say that like that's just so easy," and then here you come. And it was so funny because I said, "Did Eric hear me talking?" Because I just had this conversation with someone, and then he starts talking about you maybe 2 or 3 days later. He's like, "You need to know this person." I'm thinking, I wasn't having that conversation with you. So, I mean, how did you get started? I mean, what does a person do? Because you're a coach. You're a coach. So,
Right,
talk
right.
to us, coach. I'm going to call you coach right now.
Well, what happened
Because you
is like
said there are mhm.
when
Go
I
ahead.
first, our books are inside of us and our books want to be written. That's why people be waking up in the middle of the night thinking about writing a book. And that's why you meet people and people are calling forth your purpose and your destiny because there's a book likely inside of you that wants to be written. And so what happened is like you feel the books inside of you wanting to be birthed. And so I surrendered that to God and let him know, I don't know what to do, God. And so he just reassured me that if you will walk in this process, every step of the way where you need the wisdom and the knowledge to move forward, I'm going to make sure someone is there to give it to you. And he fulfilled that world. And once I got started with producing my first book, then people started coming to me. But even before then, I have a mentor. She was praying for me. And in her prayer, she paused and she was saying, God, we thank you for that publishing company. And I didn't hear anything else she prayed after that because I'm having this conversation with God like, God, I don't want no publishing company. I didn't ask you for that. I didn't do that. So that's what I'm saying in my mind. So I just forgot all about that. And then I was leaving church one day, and a woman approached me and said, Jeri, I need help publishing my book. Do you help people do that? God told me to talk to you. And I'm like, oh my God, here we go. So that was the beginning of this
Hmm.
journey. And ever since then, people have been approaching me to help them publish their books. And so I am a writer now because so many people, even though they're writing the book, they won't call themselves a writer. So I help writers to build their
So
confidence.
I wouldn't call myself a writer. I need to get that book. I need to get that book. I am a writer now, because I wouldn't. I mean, because there's a lot that I have to say, but I don't call myself a writer, and I wouldn't know where to begin. And I'll tell you what I like, because when did you start doing this? How long ago?
Before I answer that, I want to say, I bet years ago you didn't call yourself a mayor. And I bet before then you didn't call yourself a
I
mental
sure
health.
didn't.
Yes, but you know what?
No,
God,
that's the one thing I always called myself. No,
what?
that's the only thing that I always knew I wanted to do, was be a mental health provider. Since sixth grade, I remember I was so
Wow.
excited, because I said, they were talking about careers, and I watched a video, and they were showing different careers, and there was a psychologist working with this child, and I knew that's what I was going to do. I stuck with it. I mean, I stayed on that path. That was the only thing that I knew. I said, I'm going to be a psychologist. And so it was funny, because I'm listening to you. And when you said something about, I didn't ask to be a publisher, that's what I said when the mayor thing came. I said, I didn't ask to be mayor. I said, but God knows the plans that He has
He
for us.
has.
And so while certain
Exactly.
things aren't in our thinking, or you said, He has them. And so we have to embrace the plans that that's what we're supposed to do, is embrace the plans that He has for us. And so I'm listening to you, I'm thinking, well, maybe there's still hope for me.
Well, as the journey continues, I'm sure God will continue to unveil things that we never imagined ourselves doing. And so part of the journey that I have for writers is for them to start to identify themselves. I am a writer now, even before you publish anything. And that's because God put it in you uh, before you were born. So we are whatever He put in us, even though we may not have transformed and uh, demonstrated those things, they're still in us, and it's up
Hmm.
to us to tap into them.
So do you ever have this conversation, not with just adults, but with young people? Because there's some young people, like I said, when I was young, I knew, I said, oh, I want to do this. But that's something that I don't, we tell our kids, oh, go to school, you can do this, you can do that, you can be this and that. But I don't hear people say, you could be a writer very often.
And the reason for that is like I shared in my bio that I used to tell people that writing is one of the most important assignments in the world. And then God corrected me. He said, no,
Mm-hmm.
tell my people that writing is the most important thing in the world. Nothing happens in this world without words, nothing. I was a
Right.
nurse
That's
because
correct.
I sit down and I devoured words about being a nurse, and I became a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
And God put Himself in a book, and we devoured those words, and we became a Christian. Nothing in this world
Mm-hmm.
happens without words. And therefore, the greatest warfare we ever have is releasing our voice in spoken forms and releasing our written messages that God has given us. Because Satan knows that even when we put the words in the book of God's victories in our life, it's going to destroy His works in other people's lives. So, therefore, the warfare against writers is so intense. Writing is an act of war. Writing is an act of declaring that you are His ambassador and you're determined to deliver His message and release it to the families of the earth.
See, now you make us think of it in a whole different way. When you say it that way, it makes me think of it differently. And I had not thought of it that way, but you're so right.
I always tell people some of us are born to write. You know, some people have a writing hobby, but
Mm-hmm.
some people are born to write. And if you are born to write, it's not just a good idea, it's not just people prodding you forward,
Mm-hmm.
it's an assignment that God wants you to complete before you leave the world. In fact, one time I had a
Mm-hmm.
dream that I died and went to heaven. And I was standing there in the presence of God and the angels. And I was so excited because I made it to heaven. And I'm waiting for Him to say, well done.
Mm-hmm.
And they just stood there looking
Mm-hmm.
perplexed. And finally, God spoke and said, "What are you doing up here with all those books inside of you? We don't need your books. You were supposed to leave
Uh-huh.
them on the earth. It's an assignment. It's
Go
not just
back.
an ideal."
It's an assignment. So what would you say? What and let me ask, well, before that, let me ask you this question. Because when we started talking, I was saying you've done 14 books. Now for the average person, I'm talking about me, I'm like, wow, that's a lot. I mean, that's a lot. And it should be a lot. I don't know. I'm going to say for the not so average person, that is something, that's a huge accomplishment, that you were able to do that. But what were the difficulties? What were the things that you had to maneuver? Because there are always stumbling blocks and obstacles, and and I'm going to say, and especially as a Black female, like you said, people want to silence your voice. What were the things that you had to learn to navigate to be successful, to be where you are today?
Well, first of all, I want to say that 14 books to me is it's like nothing. It's like, oh my God, I just haven't done even half. I would like to write 100 books before I depart this world.
Mm-hmm.
When we look at other writers, there's so
Okay.
many writers that have wrote 200 books, 300 books and stuff. So it's not unrealistic, but the challenges is to keep moving forward because, life has so many transitions. Now, when I first started writing, I had an office in my home. I had a spare bedroom. It was an office, and it was like my place, my zone. I would get off work and step
Mm-hmm.
into my office, and creativity would come. But then my mother was ill, and she moved in with me, and that occupied my office. And so I grieved for a year, like I
Okay.
don't have a writing space. And so sometimes people believe you got to have the same time, the same space, and all that. And I would just encourage people to get
Uh-huh.
rid of that kind of thinking. I had to shift my thinking to I would write anywhere, anytime, any place. I'll use a recorder. I'll do whatever I need to do to get it done.
So okay. Okay. But you said it took you a moment to get there,
It did. It
but to
did.
recognize you don't have to have those things that we put in our heads and our thoughts, that if I can't do it this way, it can't happen.
And another thing is people think you have to have 2 or 3 hours set aside to write. And that's all in an ideal world. We would have this perfect space and this perfect
Mm-hmm.
time. But life doesn't align itself that way for us. And the first thing I start coaching people on is distractions. Because what happens is when you pick up your pen to write or go to your laptop, you're going to get distractions you never imagined. People
Mm-hmm.
you haven't heard from in years, they don't want nothing. They're just calling to say hi, and all kind of sometimes good distractions and sometimes emergency distractions. So I had to learn what is it that needs my attention now? What can I give my attention later? Or what can I just drop off the list and ignore?
So when you meet someone, and really it's like they say, I do want to be a writer. So you want to be a writer. What steps would you tell them? What do they do? Because I
Well,
think
first,
I think we limit our people, and especially young people as well. But what I like, when we don't have those kinds of conversations. But I'll tell you what, I really, and I still didn't hear. When did you start doing this?
oh, when did I start? I published
Yeah.
my first book in 2016. That was my first book in
Okay.
2016.
And the reason I'm asking, okay, so that wasn't that long ago. So you were
But
fully grown, is my point.
I've been writing for 30 years, though. I started writing
Uh-huh.
articles.
Uh-huh.
I didn't have the confidence to write a book. So, and I started writing articles, and everything I wrote got rejected. And so I said, well, I know this stuff is good. Why is it being rejected? So I had to go to conferences, attending conferences in
Mm-hmm.
That's educated me to writing techniques and stuff. I resubmitted everything that was rejected after I had revised it, and all my articles were published. I have over 100 publishing credits
Wow.
in different magazines. I've been in Chicken Soup for the Nurse's Soul, Decision Magazine.
Uh-huh. Yes.
So yeah, so after that, and I gained my confidence in writing, I started publishing my books.
And I like that you didn't stop. You didn't let those obstacles stop you, because a lot of times, I mean, it's frustrating, it's disappointing. We think we can't do it. You didn't let those hurdles, those obstacles stop you. You could say, what do I need to learn and know to do this better? That was what you did, and you continued. And I like that, because so many times we talk about young people and what they have to have, but I remember, I said I was fully grown. I was probably 50 when I decided to go into a different direction. I opened up a store. I had a store where I sold natural hair, skin, and body products. And I said to myself, what am I doing at this stage of the game, this stage of my life, doing something completely different? And then 4 years later, I end up running for mayor. And it was interesting to me that I realized um, I was keeping myself from doing things. Sometimes we put boundaries and restrictions on ourselves. Sometimes we'll say, I'm too young to do this, or I'm too old to do this. And that's what I was thinking. How am I making this kind of lifestyle change at this point in my life? And then I went on and did it, obviously. Um, and so I think that's just so important, that it doesn't matter where you are in life as far as ages. These are things that we can do, because, like you said, if it's in you, it may not come out when you're 20. Well, you've been writing for a long time, but it may not come out when you're 20. It may not come out until you're 35. You might be 42. You could be 50, or older. But it doesn't mean you can't attain and achieve these. So I like that you talk about coaching people, and helping them to tap that writer that is inside of us, because we do have something to say. We do have something to say.